Welcome back to the Convo Couch, everyone. Pasta Jardula here. Welcome back to the Convo Couch, everyone. Pasta Jardula here. You're going to get this right sooner or later, because sooner or later, you're going to unmute yourself and then speak.
Muted?
Yeah, you were
I'm
muted.
sorry, I thought that was the engineer's job to unmute.
Yeah,
so.
you're the engineer in Moscow, unfortunately.
Hi, guys. What's up?
I'm Fiorella. Okay, guys, welcome back today. Fam, what is going on? How you doing?
I'm good. I'm sharing some stuff. That's
You're
why I'm
sharing the
doing.
show. Well, guys, now's that
Yeah.
time. Everybody hit the like button, hit the share button. We have the Rumble channel going. We have the YouTube channel going. We have the Rockfin going. If you're a premium member, go over to Rockfin, watch it over there. That's always a great way to help us out. If you can subscribe to the channel for $14.99 a month, you'll get everybody's content across the board for free. We are still waiting on the program where we can have individual subscriptions, so that should be coming soon. And we'll have a fun, low price for all you Convo Couch potato heads. But if you want to go over to Rumble,
they are not that. They are not that. We are not calling them that. That's like the opposite of what we want people to do. No, yeah. We don't want people to sit around on the couch and do nothing. We want people to go out and do stuff. Like, I'm not going to call them that. Like, I'm vehemently opposed to that. I will not be part of this campaign to call them that. This is absolutely ridiculous.
Well, we got to think of something, because we can't just not give them a name, right?
Already, they literally, our audience, our friends, our fam. That's fine. It doesn't have to be some sort of crazy thing.
Well, the Vanguard has the Vanguardians. Like, I thought we should have something,
You're comparing yourself to the Vanguard? Why
no,
would you
but
do
that? They got a catchy name. Well,
I don't think that's catchy. I think it's dumb.
Okay, before I get myself in any more trouble, let's just bring in our guest, fam. Why don't you introduce our guest, and we'll get the ball rolling, because I am just failing over here. Hold on. For my name, Snow Couch Potato Heads. But
there was a vote, and they voted against it. So I don't know why you keep doing it. Anyway, I'm going to welcome our guest, Vanessa, who's waiting quietly behind the scenes. So you can go ahead and bring her in. Vanessa Bealey. She's amazing. A beautiful smile. There she is. We love her.
Oh, love you guys too. And I love listening. I could just sit here all night and listen to you too.
You see the abuse I take on multiple shows, right? Like, I used to be the nice, friendly, fuzzy one, and I get shot down by my business partners on both ends. So I don't know what to do, Vanessa. What am I gonna do?
No. It's completely different. This is no. Okay. Anyway, we're glad Vanessa is here. We're glad Vanessa's here.
Yeah. Can I start off today? Because I know 9 times out of 10, I always when I have Vanessa or Ava on, I always ladies first and stuff. But I kind of did a little homework, fam, and I think you'd be proud of me, because I want to talk about this right now, because I know we want to talk about the white helmets, right? But I went to Vanessa's Substack. Her Substack is located in her bio of her Twitter now, guys. Very important right now. It was very easy.
Thank you for that tip. I'm so hopeless.
No, I think it's going to bring a lot more people to the Substack, because I clicked on it. And I went to the White Helmets when you did a little bit of an interview. And it's very important to point this out, because I think a lot of people feel, Vanessa, like people like me and Fee, that we're just so anti-imperialist that if a group like the White Helmets come in, we just automatically deem them as traitors, bad. And that's just by like our ideology. But the work that you have done, especially the work that Corey Morningstar has done, is connecting the dots via NGOs. And I think this is really important, because a lot of people don't pay attention to how we have these groups like the National Endowment for Democracy, like the OAS. They are regime change light. They are CIA adjacent. In other words, the taxpayers pays money to these groups. They're funded by the government. The NGOs then take this money and amp these groups up like the White Helmets. And it's deep, because the White Helmets were actually in video games as the good guys. Johnny pointed out to us, remember, Call of Duty, which is a military game. When somebody was down and hurt, they would literally, Vanessa, have the White Helmets come in there, rescue them.
Yeah, I know.
So I think it's very important to point out, number one, the money ties to the NGOs. We're not bringing this up. You even said that I think it was British intelligence or the Brits mentioned this in black and white. We should point out the money lines, the parallels from these NGOs that Corey Morningstar has talked about. But then, Vanessa, I also want you to point out why it's so dangerous them resurfacing and coming around to the audience, to the people who might think, well, how much damage could they really do? If they're there to help, they're there to help. No, kind of let's set shit straight today, Vanessa. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm kind of like, I'm so white helmeted out. It's like they don't
I figured
go
you would be.
away. But
no, apparently not.
I
said apparently not. No,
I know. I mean, they look, the white helmets, if we're going to go back in history, they were established by basically an entire kind of MI6 cutout corporation, which included Alistair Harris, who headed up Analysis, Research and Knowledge, ARC Group. He employed a dude called James Le Mesurier, who was a former British military intelligence operative. I'm being very clear to make that differentiation. He wasn't officially MI6, but he kind of worked with MI6, right? And this guy, basically, James Le Mesurier and Alistair Harris, worked in almost every single NATO intervention theater from Yugoslavia going forward. And the important point to make here is James Le Mesurier in particular was in Pristina in 1999 under the auspices of Bernard Kouchner, who was then the High Representative of the UN in Kosovo in Pristina in 1999 when James Le Mesurier was there. Mesurier at the time had switched basically from, in my opinion, from being very much military focused to, let's say, intelligence focused, although it was couched in sort of much nicer terms. But effectively, he was then tasked with the transformation of the Kosovo Liberation Army, which again was an Al-Qaeda Albanian warlord mix-up, which was weaponized by the West, including the US and the UK, against the Serbs, against Milosevic, with the intention to, of course, demonize and criminalize the Serbian government, to bomb Serbia into beyond, basically, using all sorts of dirty weapons. And the KLA were then transformed into the Kosovo Security Corps, or Protection Corps, by James Le Mesurier on behalf of the British government. And at the same time, they were cross-border organ trafficking, human trafficking, predominantly of Serbs, into Albania, where they were extracting organs, in many cases from living children and living teenagers. This is very well documented. Carla Del Ponte wrote a book about it. She also described how she was basically totally hindered in her investigation by UN officials because, of course, Bernard Kouchner, who, as I said, was effectively the head of the operations that James Le Mesurier was working as part of, was involved, or it's believed that he was involved in particularly the organ trafficking. So fast track forward, who is chosen to develop an organization, as you said, officially a non-governmental organization, which is what an NGO is. It's very rare that any of them are NGOs. Effectively, what are they? They are a Trojan horse on behalf of the security agencies, particularly of the EU, US, and UK. But they also act as money laundering projects for the billionaire complex. So in other words, they create these kind of NGOs in order to funnel their wealth into it in the sense that they are being philanthropic, but the money eventually sort of goes full circle back to them. So it's a very clever way of money laundering under the pretext of humanitarian, environmental, anything that gives people the sense of a stakeholding in the future of the planet, right? This is the attraction of NGOs. It also, what it does, if you imagine, if someone's feeling they want to help, they want to do something, instead of finding a way to do it, which is perhaps a little more difficult for them, they go to the easiest NGO they can find. They give them the money. It's now so easy to do that. There are apps that are being developed where you just click on your phone and you can donate to any of these NGOs. And that gives them a sense of investment in preventing tragedy and helping humanitarian tragedy. In reality, the reality is, of course, completely the reverse. So the White Helmets were created in 2013 by this guy that had previously certainly been involved in the transformation of the organization into something more palatable while they were organ trafficking. So I'm not saying he was directly involved in it. I'm just saying there is a strange coincidence that he was there at the time and he was working on their whitewashing, basically. So in 2013 in Istanbul and in Turkey and Jordan, he established the White Helmets, first responders. Again, the connection is quite clever because if you imagine this is after 9/11, and after 9/11, what is the most kind of untouchable of organizations? It's the first responders, the fire brigades, the emergency services. So they create this brand, this White Helmet brand, which from the start was embedded exclusively with the armed groups, described as rebels, but in reality dominated and pretty much controlled in all the areas that they occupied by Al-Qaeda, Nusra Front originally, and now Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. Again, that multiple rebranding, which is what they do in the entire kind of global terror complex. And I include NGOs, military industrial complex, billionaire complex in this. And then we know from documents that were released by the British government that effectively the White Helmets were tasked with corroborating particularly British government foreign policy. That's the wording in the document. So, I mean, that for me is immediately quite weird anyway. So they're tasked with corroborating foreign policy. So in other words, they're tasked with producing the propaganda that will corroborate and manufacture consent for the foreign policy, which was regime change in Syria, and it's been regime change in Syria for the last 75 years for MI6 and CIA. This isn't anything new. Gradually, their role developed into further criminalizing and demonizing the Syrian government, and then, of course, their Russian allies in particular. And I guess the narrative, which was the equivalent of the weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, was the chemical weapon narrative, which the White Helmets were tasked with producing. Which of course leads us to Duma 2018, the alleged chemical attack when the suburbs of eastern Damascus were about to be liberated by the Syrian Arab Army and allies, and suddenly, lo and behold, there was a chemical attack. I was actually in that area at the time, having myself just visited a number of chemical weapons facilities and manufacturing sites that were actually under the control of the armed groups in eastern Ghouta. And that quite a funny story was we'd gone on a kind of group media tour, and actually who was with me but Frederick Pleitgen of CNN. And he basically, like, I drove him crazy because I followed him around everywhere and I was filming everything he was filming, and I was filming every interview he was taking. He did actually put in an official complaint about me afterwards, which they totally dismissed. And when the attack happened, he was doing his CNN anchor thing. And he basically said, yeah, it seems that the Syrian government has used chemical weapons. And on Twitter, I just went after him. I said, excuse me, I was with you when we visited the chemical weapon facilities and storage facilities of the armed groups. And yet somehow this has just slipped your mind 24 hours later. Anyway, he blocked me.
Yeah. Good job. Right.
So basically, the whole white helmet staging of that event has been completely discredited by the OPCW, the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, by the dissident inspectors who actually were on the ground and did the investigation, and certainly didn't come to the same conclusions that the OPCW did eventually, which retrospectively justified the unlawful bombing of Damascus and the suburbs of Damascus by the UK, US, and France on the basis of the white helmets' evidence of there being a chemical attack, although it was proven it was even stated by a BBC producer, Riyam Dalati, that the scenes in the hospital had been staged by the white helmets. I myself and a number of other journalists, including Robert Fisk, immediately visited the hospital, and we were told by all the doctors and medical staff there wasn't a chemical attack. There was no chemical attack. We didn't have people coming in with chemical attack injuries. And the interesting thing that I found out from one of the doctors I interviewed is that all the death certificates were being written up and signed by the white helmets. And as he said, like, what the hell? I was the doctor on duty. Why didn't they bring me the bodies for me to actually do the autopsy and to sign the death certificate? Who are the white helmets? They don't know. They're not doctors. They're not medics.
So is that the biggest danger part of it? And fam, I'm so sorry for cutting in. I know I got the first question, but I just wanted to follow up. First of all, it's awesome that you were with Robert Fisk doing that. Holy shit. Robert Fisk's book, they're like Bibles of just tons of information. I read his book on what was going on with Iraq between Kuwait and that road of death, and he wrote so eloquently about it and such a devastating thing. But when it comes to the white helmets, is that the dangerous part of what they can really do? That they are an arm of the propaganda that is continued to be pushed there?
Well, they're more than just an arm of the propaganda. They are effectively an auxiliary of the armed groups and predominantly of Al Qaeda. They work hand in hand with Al Qaeda, and of course, what people don't understand is that after the earthquake, when the West is talking about sending aid into Syria, what they're talking about is the pocket of northwest Syria in Idlib, which is dominated by Al Qaeda, which is a known asset of the US and the UK and Syria, and that alongside Al Qaeda are the White Helmets and various other NGOs, again funded by Western entities like the Violet Group, which I wrote about for Whitney at Unlimited Hangout, Molham team, which again is raising money in the West, but they're actually funded by Israel in part, and various others, but the major one is the White Helmets. And right now, what I guess I'm arguing is that the millions that are pouring in now to the White Helmets, bearing in mind that their brand was significantly damaged after the chemical weapon, the exposure of their staging the chemical weapon attack in Douma and in Khan Sheikhoun, and being involved in the propaganda reference, the Ghouta attack in 2013. And so their brand had been, really quite badly damaged. They tried to revive it by getting them involved in Ukraine, and they were making a big hoo-ha about going to Ukraine and offering help and offering to train the paramedics in Ukraine. And that kind of fell flat on its face. They also didn't do very well during COVID. They didn't get the amount of funding that they wanted during COVID. That also kind of didn't really take off because Syria as a whole didn't take much notice of COVID. It had a rather few more things to worry about than COVID. Yeah. So it was failing really on many levels. And then suddenly the earthquake happened. And suddenly the West saw an opportunity to not only kind of resurrect the whole brand and literally disappear history. Like 11 years of White Helmet crimes against the Syrian people was just written off. I mean, bearing in mind, they've been accused by Syrian civilians of organ trafficking, aka the connection to KLA and James Le Mesurier in Pristina in 1999. Theft, murder, torture, detention, all kind of manner of sectarian crimes that were carried out by members of the White Helmets. And also members of the White Helmets were known, and this is documented, to be also leaders or armed members of groups like Abu Amara, al-Sham, Nusra Front, all of which were some of the most brutal gangs, Jaish al-Islam, of course, that were predominantly in eastern Ghouta. And so the danger of this group isn't simply the propaganda aspect, although, of course, the information war against Syria has been a very, very devastating one. The danger now is how the earthquake has kind of, I don't know, I don't want to say it switched off people's brains, but it kind of has done, even inside Syria. And I've said this on various occasions to people here, because they started sharing photos of the White Helmets. I'm like, what are you doing? You know, but it's almost like the tragedy sort of wiped out everybody's rational thinking. And I understand that from a Syrian perspective. Of course, I completely understand that. But even in the West, people have been a little bit bamboozled by the amount of wall-to-wall propaganda. It's literally the White Helmet propaganda has just started all over again. It's like nothing has happened in the last 11 years. And I said before, I was talking to Corey about this, Corey Morningstar, and both of us were just feeling, you know, not really defeated, but like, shit, have we got to start this all over again? You know, like, it's almost a re-education process. And of course, what's happening now, and I had some pretty interesting conversations in the last 2 days with various kind of officials and authorities here and members of the military. What's happening here now is that the West is seeing an opportunity, of course, in their usual manner, you know, exploiting a humanitarian tragedy to actually further their military gains or military agenda in Syria, because that had been largely failing thanks to the resistance of Syria and its allies. And so they'd introduced the economic pressure through Trump, and then Biden had obviously continued it. And that was definitely having an effect. But as regards resistance against imperialism, no, it had no effect at all. It didn't really matter what they did. The Syrian people were not going to be told who should govern them, basically. They had already made that choice in May 2021. And for me, that election was not so much about re-electing President Assad. It was about a big fuck you to the West, basically. It was saying, okay, like, we're miserable. Economically, our country is suffering. You're occupying our resources. We don't have enough wheat for bread. You're stealing our oil on a daily basis. 80% of the oil the US occupation is stealing, either directly or through its proxies, and taking it out of Syria. And much of it is ending up in Israel. And so I think what the West saw with the earthquake was a vulnerable Syria that they could exploit. And while everybody was distracted, and of course they are distracted, I mean, I was in Latakia at the weekend, and 5:30 a.m. on Sunday, there was an aftershock of around 5, but it's not particularly strong. But when people have gone through a 7.8 and 2 or 3 earthquakes of some magnitude, even the slightest tremor is terrifying for them. So people are traumatized, and the West is seeing it as an opportunity to basically restart the military war to achieve their agenda, which is effectively to maintain the occupation in the northeast by the United States and the occupation of Syrian resources. In the northwest, probably to impose Abu Muhammad Jolani, who's the leader of Al-Qaeda. I know it's been rebranded and people always say, yeah, he's not Al-Qaeda anymore. Yeah, he is. The ideology doesn't change. However many suits you put him in and however much you comb his beard and slick his hair back and do a PBS interview, he's still Al-Qaeda. When you look at the language of Jolani, he refused the humanitarian convoy from Damascus, which was waiting for 10 days in southern Idlib to enter northern Idlib for the Syrian people under Al-Qaeda occupation. He refused the convoys. He wanted to charge each truck $10,000 to come in. But his language is very political. So basically what he's saying is, I will not legitimize the Syrian government, number one. Number two, I will only accept aid through the Turkish border. So I want the other border crossings, there's only one at the moment, I want the other border crossings to be open. That language is being mirrored by US officials in the UN and Biden's administration. Of course, they want the borders open, because that means that they can bring in more terrorists, they can bring in more arms. And this is where the white helmets become dangerous. A lot of humanitarian aid that's coming in is looking very suspicious to me. It's coming in huge crates and boxes. I mean, they're stupid enough in some ways to put photos on their Twitter feed and so on. They're leveling a huge area where Jindaris was, which is one of the areas that was most badly affected by the earthquake. They're leveling the whole thing. To me, it looks like a runway. It doesn't look like they're claiming it's to build houses for the people that were made homeless. But at the end of the day, both the West, the White Helmets, and Al-Qaeda don't give a shit about the Syrian people. They're expendable, right? So I don't believe one word that comes out of their mouths, because effectively it's coming from the mouths of the CIA and the MI6, right?
There you go.
So Vanessa, my question is, because we've been seeing a lot of people who may not know who the White Helmets are share their videos, share like their footage, share all these things during the earthquake. Obviously, a lot of people were shocked at everything that was happening. The coverage was showing the devastation, particularly because Syria has already endured so much in the last few years. And then, of course, you have these images of these people who look like rescue workers helping, or looking like they're helping people out of the rubble. And so you see this proliferation of this media being shared everywhere. And it sort of is, for a lot of people who aren't aware, hard to discern. What would you say to look for this propaganda type of videos, or just images that we know are just clearly an attempt to rebrand the White Helmets as these people that are there helping Syria, blah, blah, blah. What should we look for when we're looking at videos? Because, I mean, there, like you said, there was an aftershock recently. There seems to be many earthquakes going on. There seems to be, weirdly enough, in that region in particular. I know Turkey's been due for an earthquake for a while, but in general, it seems to be happening a lot. And of course, like you said, the West is capitalizing on this. Ned Price, they were basically shamed into reducing some of the sanctions, but they really haven't done anything. And they're continuing to steal the oil. So they're obviously saying, oh, yes, we're giving all this money, but we know where this money is going to. What would you say to look for in terms of what are the White Helmets and the tactics they're using to portray themselves as saviors rather than the terrorists that they are?
Well, I mean, this video that you've played a couple of times, or support the White Helmets, this is actually a video that was taken from the Idlib White Helmet channel. And it's basically showing 1 year ago all of the equipment that they'd already been supplied since 2013. According to the USAID regional report in, I think it's 2020, they had, up until that point, so between 2013 and 2020, they had already given the White Helmets $25.2 million in heavy machinery, some of which you're seeing here, because of course there are other sponsors with the UK. We know that a number of UK fire trucks and ambulances turned up in Syria. We know that the White Helmets stole a lot of the equipment from the real Syria civil defense that was established in 1953 inside Syria and is the only recognized civil defense by the various organizations that cover that internationally. When you're talking about the, let's just quickly talk about the budget. Actually, the budget for the White Helmets per year from their Western sponsors is $35 million. The budget for the real Syria civil defense, which is covering or serving probably around 80% of the population in the government protected areas, has 10,000 volunteers, is $50,000. White Helmets have an alleged 3,000 volunteers. I would argue that that's a lot less. So with 3,000 volunteers, they're receiving minimum 35 million per year as an annual budget. If you're talking about the propaganda itself, just like reel in your humanitarian reflex, which I completely understand, but just look at it in the cold light of day. Every single image, every single video, what is it of? It's of guys in full white helmet uniforms, generally absolutely pristine clean. There's not a mark on them, not a tear anywhere. All standing, usually with a child, like held up. And you'll see about 50 white helmets not doing any work, standing on top of the rubble, all cheering. And then around them, another circle of guys, probably armed group, with camera phones and GoPros and all the rest of it, filming them. So it's like a paparazzi event, right? If you think about it, Syrian Arab Red Crescent, real Syria civil defense, real emergency services don't do this. Like, where do you ever see the Red Cross pause in any kind of urban search and rescue or earthquake recovery work for a photo opportunity? You don't. The other thing is, look at the children that they're claiming to be bringing out from under the rubble after 5 or 6 days of being buried. They're clean. Their hair is clean. They don't have a mark on them. Their clothes are clean. There's no dust on them at all. And when they're holding them up, you can see that they know everyone there. Like, the kids are like, oh, hi. You know, they're not. And what, do you do that with an injured child? Do you take it from under the rubble where it's been for 6 days and just wave it around and hand it around and then take your picture taking it to the ambulance? Or do you put it on a stabilization stretcher to make sure that it doesn't have any injuries to its back? Seriously? And then what I'm seeing now is what they love doing is the special lighting photos. So there's a picture that I've seen circulating on Twitter today where it almost looks like firelight, right? The white helmet is emerged from the rubble and you've got the child on his shoulder and the spotlight's only on him and everything else is in darkness. So he's lit in this kind of amazing Hollywood Oscar.
Yeah.
Unsurprisingly, they won.
Baby's always like Simba, like from the Lion King.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, you know, it's I'm sorry, but real rescue work is dirty, shitty work. It's horrible and it's horribly disappointing most of the time. In Aleppo, every house that we saw that had collapsed, there were probably between 30 and 40 victims. And of those 30 or 40 victims, probably only 2 or 3 were brought out alive. The rest were dead, were bodies.
And I'm sure they didn't pause for a picture real quick. I'm sure that as soon as they brought somebody alive, rush them.
You know, I guess the thing is that, you know, you mentioned, what is it, Call of Duty.
Yeah.
They produced kids' books for school with the white helmets as the heroes. It's like people have been submerged in this kind of unreal world of Hollywood events, you know? And so now when an earthquake tragedy becomes a Hollywood event, it's kind of normal. It's that blurring of reality and fiction, which we've sort of been, you know, we've been programmed to receive, right? And because the white helmets, because I was actually talking about this in Aleppo with the head of the civil defense there, and he said, you know, he said, the thing is, like, what can we do? The white helmet propaganda is just so, it's so overwhelming, and we don't have the resources. And also, it's not our thing. Like, we're rescuers, we're fire brigade, we're just ordinary people that want to do the best we can to help our people. We're not actors. We don't know how to promote ourselves. We don't know how to do marketing. We don't know how to do propaganda. And so the power of the images that the white helmets produce for people that don't really know anything about Syria is for me, it's like really dangerous. It completely usurps the reality on the ground with this kind of Hollywood shit that people are giving their money to.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the danger. There's millions. There's more than 300, 400 million now that's pouring into Idlib, and a huge percentage of that is for the white helmets. For what? What do they need? They have an annual budget far beyond the needs of 3,000 volunteers. They don't have any skills. They're not paramedics. They're not builders. They're not carpenters, even though the propaganda will claim that they're candlestick makers and everything else.
Yeah.
Well,
I want to talk a little bit more about, though, as well, while we're into this whole thing. The West continues. Wait, that's not the one right here. Here's the one I wanted. Israel continues to bomb Syria unchecked from Western media. Why is this not getting any play whatsoever? I mean, I know it's more the same, but the fact that they're bombing, and you wrote this was in your Substack too as well, ladies and gentlemen. Please go out and check out Vanessa's Substack. Syrian earthquake and Israeli aggression instead of humanitarian aid. How?
That's their aid. That's their humanitarian aid.
Right. Right. How the heck is this happening? That bombing is still taking place in Israel, from Israel, in earthquake zones, and nobody is picking this up. I mean, I know it's probably just more the same, Vanessa, but please tell us your opinions about that.
Well, it's actually not more of the same. What this is part of the escalation in Syria at the moment, actually. So I talked about the West exploiting the earthquake. And I think I mentioned before that immediately after the earthquake, there was a breakout from Raju prison north of Afrin of ISIS leaders, not only ISIS militants, but the majority of the ISIS leaders. And that was under the control of Turkish intelligence. Then a couple of days after that, there was an attack on Syrian civilians in Sukna, which is to the east of Homs, so kind of north of Damascus in the desert area in the center of Syria. 53 civilians were murdered by ISIS, and many more were kidnapped. Now, as a result of that, military in Syria that is sympathetic to Syria and the Syrian government actually attacked one of the American military bases in the northeast. And this isn't reported in any media, but I've had it confirmed by 3 very reliable sources. An American officer and 2 military were killed in that attack. So that was a revenge attack for the ISIS attack. Why? Because the US is known to control ISIS in Syria. The ISIS terrorists that carried out the attack were eliminated by the Syrian army at the same time. As a result of that, I'm also told then that the US basically called Israel and said, okay, we're not having this. We're not having direct attacks on our illegal military bases occupying Syrian territory. We want you to attack Damascus and demonstrate that if we're attacked, we will attack back. Because, of course, what is Israel? It's America's attack dog in the Middle East. Mm-hmm. So then came the attack from Syria, which was one of the most aggressive for some time. Actually, it hit, I think, 6 targets, including in Sueda in the south. It was a UNESCO heritage site. It hit Damascus Citadel and a number of institutions which housed historical documents on Damascus and on the Citadel. And of course, it hit a civilian apartment residential area in Kafr Souza, which is about 20 minutes from here. killing 5 civilians, including a pharmacologist, a cardiologist, and an engineer. Now we have a situation where Nasrallah, the head of Hezbollah in Lebanon, has actually issued a warning to the United States. And he's basically said, if you start doing this kind of shit, it's going to come back at you way, way, way more than you can even conceive. He used the word inconceivable. So this, for the first time, was a direct threat from Nasrallah to the States and to Israel. What has happened since then? Bashar al-Assad, the president of Syria, went immediately to Oman. Then the Arab Interparliamentary Union met in Damascus. So Arab states came in and normalized relations with Syria and basically talked about Syria as the seat of Pan-Arabism. So this is like, that's what I'm talking about. We're seeing now a rapid escalation here. We have now the foreign minister from Egypt in Syria in the first time, I think, for about 10 years, with messages from President Sisi to President Assad. So there are kind of, and we know also that Egypt is being targeted. There is potential for serious escalation in Egypt from the Sinai front, which is controlled by Israel, and from Libya, which of course has always been used to percolate terrorists and arms into Syria, and now potentially into Egypt. So that's another reason that Egypt is here, because it knows perfectly well that it's going to be targeted. So we're at a fairly serious tipping point in Syria, in my opinion, where the West has lost its military war, it's lost its economic war, and now it sees an opportunity to potentially fatally weaken Syria, or at least annex the territory that it wants to annex, in order to reduce Syria down to a kind of central state surrounded on at least 3 sides by hostile states.
Is it an exaggeration to say that whenever Israel attacks Syria, that it's really the United States attacking Syria?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they work hand in glove. You can't separate the two. And equally, you can't separate Israel from the terrorist groups either, because historically, when the terrorist groups are under pressure in the past from the Syrian Arab Army during liberation, Israel has bombed air bases and military bases and air defense systems and so on.
Is Syria in a position, though, do you see, especially after this earthquake, to be more susceptible to government intrusion because of what you mentioned about how it seems people are forgetting what the White Helmets did and who they are? Do you think there's more of that susceptible notion, or is there more anger toward the West in sort of comparing how Ukraine is treated, for example, how Ukrainian refugees are treated, how Ukraine as a whole, oh my gosh, the propaganda, Russia bombs civilians and blah, 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 and you need to stand with Ukraine because of Russia's aggression, when Israel is continuously bombing Syrians, is killing Palestinians and doing all sorts of things. Is there that sort of more anger towards the West, or is it more susceptible now because of the aftermath of this?
There is, people are very traumatized. It's difficult to describe. I've been to Aleppo and I've been to Latakia. In Latakia, about the same as Aleppo, 805 people were killed. More than 1,100 were injured. Hundreds of homes destroyed, and so it's set back the rebuilding of Syria decades, actually. But as regards Israel, I mean, if there were a war against Israel tomorrow, I think just about every Syrian would take up arms and go to the border. I mean, that's without question. However exhausted they are, wounded they are, bleeding they are, that's just not gonna, that's not even feasible. As regards their view of the West, there is a slight susceptibility where I think they're tired of the evil of the West. You know, they want to break from it. They want to actually think there's some good in the world. So it's not about not being angry with the West. It's about trying to find some good somewhere. You know, like the West can't be this monolith of evil. Surely there has to be some good. And so I think that's been a temporary feeling among the people here, where they're just sort of thinking, I don't even want to think about the war. I don't want to think about politics. I just want to think about being a good human, you know?
Yeah.
But I don't, it wouldn't take long for them to kind of, they know who their enemies are. Ultimately, they know who their enemies are.
It's a shame. It's really, to tell you the truth, they're the enemy of the people. We should realize that we all have the same enemies. One is killing blood in our name, and the other one is being killed from blood in, the United States and the West name. And I think a lot of people do somehow as well kind of separate Great Britain and France, and not realizing, in Israel separately from the West, and not realizing that it's all these entities working together with oligarchs and the predator class pushing these nation states for their needs, and death and destruction follows behind. Fam, you got anything else for Vanessa before she gets on out of here? We've had it for almost an hour.
No, Vanessa, is there any reputable ways to donate to the people of Syria that won't end up in an NGO? Like, I please be careful who you're donating to, because if this is not good. We don't want it to end up in the white helmets.
No, I mean, there was, that's the other thing, of course, they talk about lifting the sanctions, and then GoFundMe shut down every single funding campaign that was raising money for central Syria, right? But was raising 100,000 for the white helmets who are in Syria. But they actually reinstated Kevork's campaign, but I don't know if it's still up and running. I can give you that link. I mean, the Syrian Arab Red Crescent, provided you donate to the bank account in Lebanon, in Beirut, they work through Damascus. So at least they do go through the Syrian government.
Yeah, now we have problems in Beirut, though, with the banking over there. Everybody's going crazy. They're getting locked out of their accounts. It's like one bad thing after the other. But listen, I'm going to leave you with this. I got something to cheer you up. Garland Nixon, who stirred up things in Taiwan with a joke on a tweet, and literally all crap broke loose, he put a picture up of Zelensky. It's really cute. What do you guys think? Oh, wait, that's cocaine there. Oh, my God. I am so sorry. I got the wrong picture.
I was waiting for somebody to do that, because that's the first thing I thought when you said you guys were going to watch that movie.
Send me that. That's brilliant.
Yeah, that's the poster. That's on Garland Nixon's Twitter. Cocaine Bear. We saw it this weekend. I'm sure Steven will have a different opinion than me. I'm giving it a thumbs down. He can give it a thumbs up. But there were some entertaining parts of it. I hadn't seen a movie in a long time, but we had a little fun time. There's no messages there. I guess it's just pure crappy, campy shit. And I think so. Elizabeth Banks directed it. But anyways, Vanessa, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, if you go to Vanessa's Twitter, her Substack is there. You can follow her. You can subscribe to the Substack. You can help her out over there. She only gets like an hour and a half of electricity, so we got to let her go so she can go cook some food.
No, I've eaten.
She's eaten
like
already.
11 p.m. here.
We'll get that heat.
Say hi to the dogs, by the way.
Say hi to them. They're all fast asleep.
Oh.
Vanessa Bealey, we love her. We love her work. Thank you, Vanessa, from the bottom of our hearts. We're big fans here at the Convo Couch.
Love you guys.
Bye, Vanessa.
Bye. Vanessa Bealey, everybody. Fam, let me give you this.
No, I'm just trying to offer shit about the fucking marmot.
Fam, the marmot is going crazy. We found out, we have evidence that the marmot has derailed the train in Ohio. The marmot was the one with the balloon. The marmot is the one who got Zelensky his yayo. The marmot has been attached to everything. I'm glad you got those people in RT on Marmot Watch, because we need to be consistently looking out for the Marmot fam.
This is pretty typical of the United States to blame somebody else but them. But I thought Putin was going to get blamed for the blizzards in Southern California.
Well, he did. It was his fault. It was totally his fault.
Is there snow in Vegas right now?
Not today, but there's been snow in Vegas like all week. It's been crazy.
Yeah.
Fam, let's get into this next story really quickly, because it's going to lead in a little bit to our next guest. We're going to have Patrick Henningsen on. And fam, you have to make a decision whether or not we should go on Rockford and Rumble only, because when Henningsen does get here, we're going to talk about a little bit about some COVID stuff, because he's really great about that. And with all this new information coming out, not new information, but they made it official, fam. It officially came from a lab. Nom, 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 nom.
Yeah, but they're framing it like it was the Chinese rather than the U.S. funded Wuhan lab. The U.S. funded
Some are.
Wuhan
That is
lab.
true. Very much true. Some are, and some are not, right? Some are glossing over, but some are like the guy Vivek Ramaswamy, who's running as a Republican, pretty popular dude that was on Squawk Box a lot, always talked about COVID policies and stuff. Man, is he a China hawk. And his first couple of days of him introducing himself as a person running for office, he is big time anti-China. Holy cow, fam. But let's get into this over here, because I think got to give some credit where credit's due. Mr. Zelensky himself was responsible for some of the rhetoric going on. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger here. But Zelensky berates and threatens unsupportive Americans. And this is an example of how not to win over the American people, fam. Shame and berate them while claiming Washington's global leadership is in peril. If they do not change their opinion, they will lose NATO. They will lose the clout of the United States. They will lose the leadership position they are enjoying in the world, Zelensky said at a press conference last week in reference to the U.S. public, as if the average American struggling to get by amid soaring food costs and cost of living prices stays awake at night worrying about U.S. global clout. So I guess we can play a little bit of it right here, fam. And
polls in the United States are suggesting that a growing number of Americans believe that the US is giving too much support to Ukraine. What would your message be on the anniversary to those Americans? Thank you.
I would like to thank the American people. I would like to thank all of the American people that are supporting Ukraine, the Congress, the president, the TV channels, the journalists, and everyone that has been supporting us. And that percentage of Americans, as you've mentioned, is increasing. I can tell them only one thing. If they do not change their opinion, if they do not understand us, if they do not support Ukraine, they will lose NATO, they will lose the clout of the United States, they will lose the leadership position that they are enjoying in the world, that they are enjoying for a very fair reason, and they will lose the support of the country with 40 million of population, with millions of children. Are American children any different than ours? Don't Americans enjoy the same things as we do? I don't think we're that different. And
so, fam, your thoughts right off the bat. He goes, those who are not supporting me, and he mentioned all the ones that were supporting him.
Right. So I hope we lose NATO. I hope NATO gets abolished. Thank you. I hope that happens. That's not going to happen because we stop supporting Ukraine, though. It's just not going to happen. I mean, it's the reaction that this is going to get from the vast majority of people is like, how dare you? How dare you continue asking for billions and billions of dollars? Our president couldn't even go to East Palestine, Ohio, 200 miles from DC, a little bit more, and take care on President's Day of those people. And of course, now you have, you know, Republicans and Trump and everybody like using that, but they're nobody's helping the people of the United States. And East Palestine, Ohio is one area. I mean, you can go back to Flint, you can go back to Mississippi, to Jackson, Mississippi, and the water there. You can go back through Louisiana, Alabama. The vast majority of Middle America is completely falling apart. The infrastructure is literally falling apart. People cannot buy food. They have to work several jobs. Rent has gone up. People are owning less and less property. They're owning less cars. We have these gigantic companies buying up all of the real estate in the United States. Businesses are shutting down. Party City just filed for bankruptcy, guys. I mean, this is it. I'm not saying that to be funny. Like, this is what's the way things are going in the United States are not good. There's mass layoffs happening in real estate, in banking. And the last time we saw this was around 2008. So what we're seeing is not good. And Zelensky has the audacity with the billions, not only that we're sending, but the billions being sent by people in the European Union, governments in the European Union, in the United Kingdom. And he has the audacity to want more, even though his own generals and the vast majority of even people in the United States know that this is not a winnable war for Ukraine. So he's pretty much yelling at American people who don't give a rat's ass about Ukraine. Well, they don't. I mean, let's face it, most Americans don't even know where Ukraine is. And the reality is most Americans are too busy or too overworked or too distracted and propagandized to care. But the reality is to hear somebody from another country yell at you when they're getting billions and billions, and those billions are ending up in the black market. They're ending up with very corrupt officials. They're ending up with weapons that are being sold in the black market. They're not ending up any way to help Ukrainians. They're ending up actually to help an elite class that exists in Ukraine, to help the defense industry. We all know this. So it really, I think it doesn't do him any favors for the people that are even paying attention to hear this. Even the people that are supportive of Ukraine might be like, okay, wait a minute, buddy. Like, we are helping Ukraine. We are trying. Like, and you know what I mean? It's like, it doesn't do them favors with the people who support them, let alone the people who don't.
Yeah. Somebody was been saying, shut the hell up, Zelensky. We got your back. You're screwing this up for us. Even more warmongers out there in support. Now, fam, this was in the same location we did our rally in, the Rage Against the War Machine. I heard this one was a couple hundred. They just brought everybody in closer to the microphones and everything to make it look
right,
closer. We were able to get people way down on the thing, and so it's a little bit different. But take a look at Samantha Powers over here. Samantha Powers with her Slava Ukrainia, assuring Zelensky that they have their back with more weapons, aid, or whatever they need. Guys, do us a favor. Convo Couch is still here. We got Patrick Henningsen coming on in a little bit. It's a fun-filled Monday. Already had Vanessa Beeley. What a great time with her. Do us a favor, hit the like button, hit the share button. You know what to do. We'll see you in a second. I'm going to play Samantha Powers video right here.
Partner not only in the United States will continue to be a partner not only in Ukraine's defense, not only in the war to defeat Putin and his forces, but in the fight to strengthen Ukraine's democracy and its economy. We will provide the seeds and supplies to the farmers who are out there sidestepping unexploded landmines to plant next year's crops right now. We will help bring international businesses back to Ukraine to help build a resilient economy and put Ukrainians back to work. And we will continue to fund watchdog organizations and independent media that will help root out corruption and keep the government accountable to its people. So today, as I stand before this enduring symbol of democracy, in front of a crowd committed to fighting for the democratic rights of all people, I say once again to Ukraine, you are winning. Winning back not only your territory, but your fundamental right to chart your own destiny. And winning the fight on behalf of democracies everywhere to protect sovereignty, independence, freedom, the rule of law, and dignity, which is so at the core of the Maidan revolution and so at the core of the fight today. Every day this war goes on is a day too long, and we can never lose sight of the human cost of what Putin has done. But we know that you will prevail, and the United States stands with you for as long as it takes. Slava Ukraini. Thank you.
You
Damn,
you might as well said hail the H-man.
dude, she dig deep with that Slava Ukraini. Like she practiced that Slava Ukraini. And it's the same shit, fam. A fight for Ukraine is a fight for democracies everywhere. We're going to continue to get you there. We're going to help you bring back business. You know, and we're going to put protocols in place that's going to hold the government accountable, because everybody knows that government is one of the most corrupt governments anywhere. So they're trying for a while. So they're trying to do damage control while still signaling to the Ukrainians, Slava Ukraini, we got you, not only in your fight for Putin, but down the road. We got you right here. Not the United States people, not the population. I mean, they're getting pissed off that our president went over there, you know, and barely stumbled around while they put the sirens on, just so his press secretary could say, you heard it, Biden hitting the ground. You know, it's like the same Hillary Clinton on the tarmac bullshit over again. You know what I'm saying? And speaking of, fam, Hillary Clinton, I got to play this one over here too as well coming up. Oh, here, let me show this really quickly just so you know, fam, and I'll get your opinion about what we just saw. But your thoughts on this. Good news, fam. Zelensky is going to make a song with country star Brad Paisley.
My God.
So they're going to make a country song together, fam. They're going in deep right now because that's the area I guess they got to go to. Because unfortunately, you know, they're not getting a lot of love. Yeah.
No. Watch real quick how conservatives who say no to cancel culture are going to start canceling Brad Paisley.
I hope so.
That's going to be hilarious. Oh, way to ruin your career, man.
But anything on Samantha Power before I play a little of your friend Hillary Clinton on what she's saying about?
Yeah, I do have some stuff, and then I put a few more tweets regarding that video up as well, because I think it's important. So one of the things that I want to say is I asked a question to people on Twitter. I said, can somebody please, you get a cookie if you can name a single country that's been better off after U.S. intervention or more U.S. invasion, right? Because she talks about democracy,
the United States,
and strengthening. And recently, of course, China has said, both China and Russia, but most recently, China has said the United States uses the excuse of democracy as the shield to really just stomp on the sovereignty of countries. Okay, like that. This is what she's saying is exactly what the United States government does not do. They don't protect anyone's sovereignty. Countries are left in far worse condition than they were before the United States went in. I've asked people to provide me an example of a country that the U.S. invaded or intervened, not a country that the United States sees as an ally, but a country that the United States sees we need to help that poor country and give them democracy. And I can't find an example of a single country that is better off after U.S. intervention. I really can't. And so you can show this. I wanted to show Wyatt's tweet on what I said, because he said, why isn't anyone taking these cookies? And there are the cookies that Poss always mentions, Victoria Nuland handing out the cookies during the Maidan, because Samantha Power, who was just in Peru as well, right, fam? Oh, coincidentally, was just in Peru, had the audacity to talk about the Maidan revolution and to talk about independent media the U.S. is funding,
Yeah, yeah.
It's not independent. Hello. And there she is handing out cookies to people. Okay, they orchestrated this coup. They weren't just supporting it. They orchestrated this coup.
Yes.
That's what they did. They orchestrated the coup to oust the leader, and that's the continuation of what started then that we're seeing that Russia entered, which is why you can't tell me that Russia simply invaded Ukraine. Russia entered an ongoing war. And that's the difference of really understanding this conflict. You can't tell me Victoria Nuland handing out cookies is not election interference. It's not that it's not. I mean, it is. I mean, we study elections all the time. You can't even hand out water like within a certain realm. They're really serious about this stuff in Honduras and Nicaragua and all these countries we went to. It's very, very particular. You can't be out there trying to buy people's votes. That's exactly what was happening.
Yeah, and cookies on the Maidan too as well. And I want to point out that the media that we are talking about is George Soros funded media. In this particular situation, he funded a lot of the opposition media that pushed this color revolution, that took young people who were very upset and poured gasoline on the fire. And then meanwhile, you got guys like McCain and Lindsey Graham and what's the other dude, the senator, the Democratic senator from Connecticut. I forget his name all the time. That donkey going over there and propagating and pushing war and letting them know, hey, go after this Russian-friendly government, right? And we will get your back. Same thing Samantha Power's doing here. What do you got over here, fam?
So if you click back, this is a hacked U.S. The U.S. consulate at Milan was hacked, and they started posting all this stuff on anti-Ukraine. And if you scroll down, there should be on the picture, it says, in my native country, soldiers tie people to poles, taking off their underpants for speaking Russian. Is that normal? Isn't this fascism, not Nazism? So they literally just were trolling Ukraine with this hacked account. And then, of course, it was deleted because they got the account back. But yeah, I thought it was funny that they got hacked, and that's the U.S. consulate of Milan.
Interesting. And I have something else over here, fam, too, as well. I guess this is some of the HIMARS, and then I'll play a little Hillary Clinton. What do we got?
Yeah, so Ukrainian HIMARS missiles struck an ambulance in Donetsk a couple days ago.
Yeah.
And 4 doctors were killed. And so this is what I want to reiterate to the people that constantly criticize my position and say Russia was unprovoked and that I'm pro-war, because how do you tell people not to defend themselves against this government that is NATO funded, US supported, US orchestrated? This is the things you don't see. You always see the propaganda that Russia is bombing civilians, but you don't see the reality. And so I just wanted to show the video of that happening.
Holy shit. You see the person walking in the front there? You can see them just walking, and then all of a sudden, boom. That don't look like military, guys. That don't look like military.
U.S. supplied HIMARS. Ukraine has attacked countless hospitals, especially the ones where refugees and people are recuperating from injuries. Those are the ones that they've attacked. So just wanted to put that out there.
And let's see that this once again, this evil friggin' human being still around. And you know, I had somebody who put some stuff on This Week, fam, was putting some stuff up about trying to say that leftists are better than rightists, that they're the lesser of two evils. An old friend of ours, and was trying to play all this shit. I'm like, dude, when are you guys both going to realize that they're the same and that they're both evil? Here's Hillary Clinton.
Wait a minute. This is not the left. Hillary Clinton in no way represents the left.
Yes, but what they were talking to was referring to as the American left and their choices in America, justifying them standing behind the Democratic Party, right? And saying, oh, well, wait, I wasn't saying anything about the Democratic Party. You're talking about running slates in the Democratic Party and trying to infiltrate the Democratic Party. And your talk is that, and this is the same thing we witnessed before, you're mitigating damage. The Democrats are the lesser of two evils. That is still the line of the progressives in America, that we have to, we don't like them, but they're the lesser of two evils, and we have to change that because the right are the racist. But I mean, who are the crazy warmongers? You watch this video and you guys tell me.
Ultimately, the people closest to Putin, those who have to deal with him, those who he's keeping at the end of 40-foot tables while he issues bizarre orders, they're the ones who need to act. They need to act for the good of Russia. They need to stop him, whether or not this has turned into some kind of physical or mental problems that he either had or has in some way come down with. We don't know. But his behavior is dangerous, and it's dangerous to the future of Russia. So my hope is that the people who are watching him, those who get close enough to see in person his behavior, which is so erratic, that they can try to prevent him from doing things that will not only be tragic for Ukraine, but tragic for Russia too. This should be stopped for Russia's sake.
And come on, fam. Who better to
I'm
tell
sure.
the Russian people what they need?
Yeah.
Better than Hillary Clinton. She's still, and there's neoconservatives, Republicans, Democrats, the whole 9 yards. They're one party, uniparty together, especially when it comes to war, still calling for regime change on Russia, acting like Putin has lost it a little bit and pretty much saying that she's given the signal to any of her friends out there, Epstein Putin for us. I mean, and it ain't going to happen. So,
Yeah, I mean, Hillary, God damn, like, she just does not go away. She just does not go away, guys, no matter what we do. She's just like a tumor that keeps coming back. Like the Benghazi, like the woman that really, she's just one of the worst people. She has the audacity to act like she cares about Russians. She doesn't care about Russia. She doesn't, sure as hell doesn't care about Ukrainians. This is again, and by the way, she hit every single propaganda there with Putin being crazy, Putin being sick or having some sort of thing. Have you looked at
mental
Joe
illness.
Biden recently?
Yeah.
Have you seen Joe Biden? Like
Yeah. And then you got the
like,
newspaper. You got the newspaper following up, fam. I can't understand the rhetoric. They still want to go to this whole rhetoric that Russia is losing the war, that Ukraine. This one says CIA director, Putin proving overconfident and trying to go this whole thing as the war in Ukraine enters its second year. CIA director William Burns said Sunday that Russian President Vladimir Putin is being too confident in his military ability to grind Ukraine into submission. Well, let me just try to shed a light on it for some people out there. Russia has not committed any new troops to this battle since the beginning. They're operating about 20% of their force. They are training all these reserves, and they are now currently circling the troops in Bakhmut, which is the last stronghold for them to hold on. So once they are surrounded, and now they bring in these other troops that are coming in, their reserves, it's game over. It's lights out. So, not once has Russian media or anybody in the Russian cabinet said that they were going to have a winter offensive. Remember, fam, people were saying, winter is coming. Winter is coming. And they were acting like Putin, even people in his administration had said, no, we're not going to do a winter offensive. They were there to grind them out, surround them, and now they're going to come with extra reinforcements, and that's going to spell lights out. So I don't give a shit about your F-16, your F-14. It doesn't matter. They got
and
this.
She's lying.
Yeah.
She's lying too, because she's telling Ukrainians they can win because she doesn't care about Ukrainian lives. Ukraine can't win this war, guys.
They can't.
Ukraine cannot win this war. They really, really can't. Like, stop. Like, and this is, again, like, nobody really wins in war, but the reality is you're killing more Ukrainians on this. And obviously it's the soldiers and the people, but a lot of these soldiers don't want to fight. One of the things that I was told was that there are people here who have Ukrainian friends, and a lot of them are refugees, not because they're running away. And this is something people don't talk about. Not because they're running away from Russians, but because they're running away from Ukraine, the Ukrainian government forcing them to go fight this war that they don't want to fight. To a government that they don't agree with. That's why you see a lot of refugees. But what the US media does is say, oh, these poor Ukrainian refugees are running away from Russia. They're not running away from Russia. A lot of the men are running away from being forced to fight in the army. That's what's happening. And because they know that Ukrainians are dying. And again, the advances that have been made in Artyomovsk or Bakhmut is extremely detrimental to the Ukrainian army. It's just going to make them being able to resupply military personnel and any sort of weaponry impossible. And the Russians are pretty much almost entirely in control of that. So again, this is the offensive, the Russian offensive that they were waiting for. It's still going to be cold here in Ukraine for at least another month or so, going into March. And then, of course, spring will start. But I mean, spring here is like winter in other places. So it's still going to be a while. But yeah, Ukraine cannot win this conflict. It's just not happening. It's not because I want them to lose. It's because that's the reality.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I got a poll out there, and I wanted to share this with our guest if he's coming on. Hopefully, he'll still come in. Patrick Henningson's supposed to be here. We gave him the link. Hopefully, he'll drop on in. But, fam, I got to ask you this question because I know I want to hear your answer right now because I think this is sometimes overlooked. So, my question was, and this is a poll out there, in your opinion, if you guys can go do this poll, I'd love to see it there. In your opinion, which event was most influential for Russia or Putin committing to military action in Ukraine? Number one being NATO's eastern expansion, which is leading right now with 373 votes. Nazis bombing the Donbass is second place. Third place is the fourth choice, Zelensky wanting nukes. And fourth place, which I'm very, very surprised, fam, because I think with the new information coming out that this would be higher, 46 biolabs funded by the DOD. You got a choice there, fam, and can you tell us which one and why?
Yeah, I mean, I would say number one is NATO's eastern expansion, more than anything else, because of that pretty much constitutes everything else. I do think Nazis bombing Donbass is a huge deal, and why? But Russia wasn't ready before. There's so many things that have happened since then. But I do think biolabs are quite important. No, I don't think Zelensky wanting nukes is important because Zelensky has no power. So that I think that's irrelevant. But I think biolabs, Russia has mentioned it since the beginning of the conflict. They've mentioned that they have been doing several investigations, that they've discovered specific targeting of individuals with Russian DNA, the experiments that were being done. So this is I think is much more important than people are talking about. I do think that the involvement, I think Russia would have offered some sort of military help to Donbass, but I don't think it would have been what it is now if NATO wasn't expanding and if there wasn't that threat of going on their border, because that's what makes it an existential war. That's what makes it something like, and now you're doing experiments targeting us, so you're trying to kill us essentially. And so this is again an existential war, both for NATO in the collective West and for Russia. So whoever wins out of this in terms of this conflict, which I don't think will be cut and dry, I think it'll be Russia. It's kind of like if Russia loses this war, then Russia loses its existence. So they're not going to give in. They're not going to give up. So,
well, we had Dave DeCamp on today, and we said this today. Ukraine will be much more important to Russia than it ever will be in the United States. Taiwan will be much more important to Beijing than ever will be in the United States. But that's why I think they're starting to look over there. You know, a lot of people don't talk. We went to Nicaragua, and one of the big talks of the town was, fam, when we were there, is that once this election is wrapped up, is Ortega going to pivot towards an alliance with China and Beijing by recognizing the one China policy?
And they did.
They did. They have a long-standing relationship with Taiwan, but they said, sorry, we're going to recognize Beijing as, the capital of Taiwan, and their independence is not there. They are part of China. And that says a lot, because now there's talk of a dam that can go through Nicaragua. I mean, you really want to put the knife inside of business of the Western maritime law? That is it. You get a dam built through Nicaragua, and it's
a canal, right?
A canal, excuse me. Well, you have to have dams to have the canal. But if you get a canal that goes through Nicaragua above Panama, what a knife to the back of Western business in America. And China knows that. And they know that. So they've already been planning for, like, you want to mess around in Taiwan. And I'm saying, if America gets involved with Taiwan, it looks like they are, I mean, in the NDAA this time, the first time ever, there was their money and funding to go directly in that budget towards Taiwan to buy weapons. I mean, they found other ways to give them Patriot missiles or other ways to defend themselves, but it's in the budget now. It's open there, whatnot, and there have been talks, Taiwan, Taiwan, they're this, Taiwan, they're this. Here is Mr. Your favorite fam, Castro's son.
Stop. That is not Castro's son.
Castro's son.
You.
Castro's
I'm getting off the stream right now.
Okay, I'm just kidding. Here's Justin Trudeau, not Fidel. My bad.
No,
sorry.
people do like believe that shit when you say.
Fam, they look a little bit alike.
No, they don't. Oh my god. What is this?
Sir, I think Ukrainians can tell you a little bit about freedom and liberty. So why don't you settle down? This is a night for them, not for you.
That itself disqualifies him.
This is a night for Ukrainians, not for you. If you want to stand and cheer with Ukraine, do that. You want to wave that Ukrainian flag, please do. But let people celebrate that Ukraine is still standing and Canada stands with it. Hey, sir.
Oh my God. He doesn't have enough facial hair.
Liberty, so why don't you?
He doesn't have enough hair. He's a literal liberal. No way.
Fam,
yeah,
if you want to stand with Ukraine, stand with Ukraine. This is their night, not yours. And the West is still collectively all in on this game, fam. They're not backing down. Biden went there instead of Palestine, and it's just more of the friggin' same. And you got people like Ro Khanna out there now spitting game, saying that we're gonna, no matter what, we will not tolerate, was his words, any type of them breaking the peace deal. And it's sad. And fam, you know what I have to blame? The marmot. There he is. See the marmot right over there, fam? The marmot's got Zelensky. That fam, we have a marmot person. That Zelensky shoes right there. He's doing the cocaine. He's got a Hunter Biden's card in his hand. He's got an I love Biden behind him with all that money in cocaine and the Slavo-Ukrainian flag. Fam, it is the marmot. The marmot has been going crazy. And we need to get the marmot back in check because the marmot's causing all the problems.
Fam. Did you want to try to message the guest to see if everything's good?
I did, and I'm not hearing from Patrick. I don't know where he's at. He did not respond to my tweet. I will try one more time, and we'll see about that stuff. Yeah, on Twitter. My DM.
Oh, message. Oh, okay. Let me see if Okay, I wanted to play this video. I don't know if you've seen it. It's Joe Biden.
Send it to me and put it in the doc.
I'll put it at the very, at the end of this section. Let me see here. And then this other one too. Okay. Okay, it's the last two tweets. One of them is Joe Biden.
Give a shit about the fucking marmot.
It's not a marmot, guys. It's the way the world is, and we're at fault for our own.
Where'd you put it?
The two last tweets of the second section, the one we're in. You just might have to refresh your stuff.
You, fam. Watch yourself. Don't get snappy with me.
Yeah. Well, right. You make it so easy to get snappy.
So, fam, I will share this Joe Biden video. Guys, if you can do us a favor, share this out. The best way you can help the show is to always share it out. Get this information rolling out there. Help the Convo Couch. It says the U.S. announced that it's going to fund healthcare, housing, water, hospitals, even providing preventions and stimulus checks to a European country thousands of miles away. And they've been saying this for quite some time, guys.
And to deliver much-needed humanitarian assistance as well as food, water, medicine, shelter, and other aid to Ukrainians displaced by Russia's war, and provide aid for those seeking refuge in other countries from Ukraine. It's also going to help schools and hospitals open. It's going to allow pensions and social support to be paid to the Ukrainian people so they have something in their pocket. It's also going to provide critical resources to address food shortages around the globe, and to deliver much-needed humanitarian as well as food.
I'm
water,
sorry. So
medicine,
wait
shelter.
a minute. So can you guys, all of you need to collectively start saying that your state, wherever you live, your city is a part of Ukraine now, because maybe you'll be able to get some sort of help from the government if they think you're part of Ukraine, because that's the only way. If East Palestine, Ohio had a Ukrainian flag, maybe then you would have the help, right, coming in. Fam, we can't even get a Medicare for all, but Ukraine is going to get help. And this isn't for me trying to say, oh, look, they're not helping us. We're so mad they're helping Ukrainians. They're not even going to help Ukrainians, because it's all going to go literally to the wrong hands, as
It's
we
going to be
stated.
embezzled. It's
Right.
going to be, it's going to be,
Yeah.
forget about it. It's the same old shit too. And fam, I love this last tweet here of the day. I don't know where our guest is. We had Vanessa on, so that should be enough for today. But it says, nah, I'm sure we'd do nothing if Russia or China expanded their alliance into Mexico or Canada, or hell, even if they put their weapons on the Texas border, surely it wouldn't be a problem. And Wyatt pointing out NATO, and I love this here. In 1998, you could see all those other colors there, not red. That's, what it used to be. And now just look on the right and they're there. They went into the Baltic countries. They're right on Russia's border in the north over there. They don't want to stop. They're here in Ukraine right here. They want to fill that with red. Belarus is, Poroshenko said the other day, Lukashenko said the other day, it's going to be quick return of fire. If anybody thinks that they're going to fire upon us, we will retaliate quickly. So that is that, fam.
Yeah, and it should be blue, not red. That's the only complaint I have. It should be blue, not red. Blue for democracy and but yeah, like that's when you say Russia was unprovoked, like you're ignoring everything else that literally went down before we got to this point. Everything else that went down before the fall of the Soviet Union. Who was responsible for the fall of the Soviet Union? Sure, there were Russian leaders that made mistakes and sold out to the West, like Gorbachev in a way. He's kind of like a controversial figure. Some people like him, some people don't. But when recently, when he was talked about because of when he died, and people were going over who he was and what he represented. But this was planned long before the fall of the Soviet Union. Like everything that we're seeing now has been pretty much was rolled out for a long time, and it's just now coming to fruition. So you can't say that there was no provocation. It's hit it was just far beyond the time, and it really sucks, but that's where we're at right now. And I think China is the next pivot, as we can see. That's China is not taking any sort of bullshit from the US. You had the chief foreign policy ambassador, pretty much the go-to guy, the Sergei Lavrov of China, pretty much saying, we're not going to be told who to talk to, who to not talk to, and we're going to continue expanding our relationships with everybody. We're going to, do what we do. Expand our relationship in Africa. And I do want to mention, I don't have it in the folder. I'll have more maybe Wednesday. Nigeria had elections, lots of shenanigans, fam. Polling stations had to be closed. They postponed an election from Saturday to Sunday. They postponed another one till next week, or March 11th.
Sri Lanka's having problems with their elections too. Sri Lanka's going crazy. There's a lot of stuff going on. So yeah, we got to just keep our eyes on stuff, fam. You know who I blame?
No, I'm just
oh my God,
shit about the fucking marmot.
The marmot, fam.
It's easier to blame the marmot than take accountability.
It's the only thing I can think of that we could be the stupidest, dumbest timeline of all times, where the president can be going out there going Slava Ukraine and saying we're spending all this money to Ukraine, and yet people are starving and suffering at home. We just had a chemical freaking catastrophe, and he's going, we're going to make sure we take care of the government of Ukraine, and they're allowing it to happen.
Yeah.
People are allowing it to happen. So
yeah, people, that's the thing. People are not, where's the protest to counter that? Where's the, hey, stop working, stop your trucks. I mean, easier said than done, right? But I think
And yet we have a rally to expose this stuff, and people got to complain about people involved in the rally and stuff. I mean, you can sit there and criticize it and said it was awfully white, and I'll agree with you. It was awfully white. We could have definitely got more voices in there. But those people who were upset, they should have asserted themselves and say, let's be a part of this, because they could have been building their movement on top of this, but they wanted to make sure to let it be known that they wanted nothing with these people involved with that. And that is the crux of the issues here in the United States. I don't know about you, ladies and gentlemen, but this is a message to all those people out there who are throwing that message, that rally on the 18th. I am for it. I am rooting for you. I hope that a lot of people show up, but I will not be in line with anything that's going to make it be divisive between our neighbors. If you want to blame the government and the military-industrial complex, I'm all for it. But if you want to sit there and blame our neighbors as the problem, then I have a problem with you, because I am not going to let it happen. I am not going to give up on my mother because she's a Trumper. I am not going to give up on my uncle because he's a conservative. I am not going to give up on my cousin because he's a libertarian. It's just not happening that way. They are not the enemy. The enemy is those people above running things. And that's the biggest problem I see with what happened just recently and what's happening in the future. That's the way it goes. That's where I draw the shit line. I am not going to be pitted at my neighbor. They are not the problem.
Yeah, they're not. It's everybody, the predator class. We know this, guys. You know this. You're smart. Okay, well, I guess Pasta, if you do get a hold of it, feel free to go live. But I will. It's almost midnight here, so
no, I'm going to dip out
too
as well, and I got a lot of stuff going on. But we'll be back Wednesday, right, fam?
Yes, we'll be back Wednesday. And yeah, that's that. See you guys on Wednesday.
Fam?
Hoo-ah!
Combo out.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Bye,
Thanks
guys.
for tuning in.
Thank you for tuning in.